Pólvora, ¿cómo están? Sean todos ustedes bienvenidos a una entrevista más. ¿Qué dijeron? ¿Que ya me habían jubilado? Pues no, acá sigo con todo y por favor recuerden darle clic a la campana que está abajo de este video para recibir todas las notificaciones. Y sin más, vámonos rápidamente con esta entrevista que la verdad me emociona mucho. De hecho, me transporta a mis años de universidad hablar de esta banda y ellos están por regresar al foro Indie Rocks de la Ciudad de México, así como otras sedes en el interior de la República. Me acompaña esta mañana Oliver Ackermann, voz de A Place to Bury Strangers. Oliver, how are you today?
Great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm really excited to talking to you because I gotta tell you something. The first time I heard about A Place to Bury Strangers was 12 years ago when you opened for Deftones shows here in Mexico City. I don't know if you have any memories from that day.
Yeah, for sure. That was such an awesome, epic show. It's so sick to play with the Deftones. You know, that was what a dream come true. And I just remember someone telling us this story about some band, about someone throwing like a grenade on stage or something like that when the band was playing. And then when we started playing, like people started throwing money at us and their hats and looked like they were pissed off. And then so I remember like we like jumped into the crowd and kind of like won them over, so it's sort of like a triumphant moment on every account of like being like, oh shit, this is gonna go real bad. And then it was awesome, such a sick show. So we had such a good time.
Yeah, I remember what you were saying. It was really weird seeing people throwing their hats at the stage. I have never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, no, me either. So yeah, I thought could have gone any which way. So it was good that they liked the crazy rock and roll.
Are you a friend of the guys of Deftones?
Not like really. I mean, maybe a little bit, they're all really nice and stuff and super cool. And it was cool of them to have us on their shows. But, I wouldn't feel comfortable calling any of them up,
I love that honesty. Thank you, Oliver. Well, before talking about the recent album, last year you had two new members on A Place to Bury Strangers. Well, John played a little bit before, but now John and Sandra are the new members of the band. What can you tell me about these lineup changes, and also how much have they contributed to the new compositions?
They didn't do much with the new compositions at all. It was mostly like recorded kind of as they were sort of joining the band, and in some ways sort of like making this music to get them like super psyched and thrilled. And they were an inspiration for this stuff. Definitely. It's like I was excited about these things kind of happening. And but yeah, it's been great having them in the band. They're like definitely bring like such a cool new energy and a light. Like John, I grew up recording music with him, so he instantly like got all the ideas for the songs and is like kind of taking them to the next level, sort of live. And then Sandra, she's just like so happy and excited and thrilled to be doing all this stuff that you can just like see it and feel it with the band. Like every moment is like the best moment of her life. And so it's been freaking awesome where and she can just drum forever. I don't know how she does it, like crazy drum beats just on and on and on. I'm tired and like want to puke after 20 minutes or something. She can just go and go and go. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been so good and fun to have them in the band, and the shows have been wicked. So it's been cool.
She's a human metronome.
Yeah, something like that. Definitely.
Where did
yeah, I don't know how she does it. There you go. Yeah.
Where did you met John?
I met John in high school, actually. And he was like in this band that I thought was really sick. And me and my buddy used to go to their practices and like headbang, and then go see their band live as well as some other bands. And that was even in some ways like an inspiration for starting music. And then he wasn't a drummer, he was a guitar player, but we asked him to play drums in our band and he freaking slayed. And so it was awesome. So long time been with that dude.
Great. Well, Oliver, now I want to move on with the recent album, See Through You. I want to speak a little bit of a couple of the songs I really loved from it. But first of all, I want to know everything we should know about the producing behind See Through You.
Yeah, I mean, it started like in the moments of kind of when the sort of the lockdowns and everything were going on in New York. So I had like kind of transformed the living room in my house into a little studio for a little while and was just kind of setting things up and kind of the start of these sort of songs were being written there. And then once we kind of sort of opened up the shop, then I was going on over to the Death by Audio shop and recording with and playing drums every single day that I possibly could, and figuring that kind of stuff out, and then just sort of built out the record sort of as the time went on. When I was stuck in the lockdown, I maybe wrote like 60 songs or something, and so it was like there was a lot of different stuff to kind of choose from, and it kind of made sense, and so I sort of put it together as kind of like the journey of what the band falling apart, turning into the craziness of the world and the streets in New York and the emptiness and the kind of tragedy and the insanity, and then into the hope of the new band and everything and the excitement of all that.
Yes, and I don't know, while I was listening to the record, this atmosphere was really dense, even more than on previous albums. And I think it totally translates to that feeling that you mentioned about what's going on in the world.
For sure. I mean, it's just like, it just kind of is almost stressful or insane, all the sort of things that are happening, like nonstop. I don't know what it is, if it's like there's more shit actually going on, or if it's like, I don't know, I'm older and know more people or what it is, but it's like, it just has spiraled out of control. There's not like, there's like not the same like relaxing moments you used to have. You think back and ponder about like hanging out on some river or something with some buddies or something. It's like not those kind of times anymore.
Yeah, let me say that you took Foss to 11.
Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah.
Well, as I mentioned, Oliver, I wanted to talk about some of the songs included that I really love. The first one is Anyone But You, which I actually feel is one of the more different tracks included on the album. It definitely has a more vibrant feeling to it. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's like one of those kind of crazy songs where you just sort of come up with some kind of idea and then it sort of works. And that was like this kind of crazy hook for a song where it has this, part where it almost like stops and plays a bit and then goes. It's that was sort of like the musicality of it or whatever, and how it kind of the composition is sort of comes about is based on that kind of idea, and then going to different places as that happens, and then that leads itself to writing a song where you can kind of go to those different places and show the different sides of the story and go on a bit of a journey and talk about your frustrations and things that are going on, and that was and that's that song. It was even actually originally going to be like as crazy as it is, like the one of the first like A Place to Bury Strangers acoustic songs, and
Really?
I originally recorded it with an acoustic guitar, and then I just decided to totally scrap that because it was just kind of I mean that's kind of a fun version or something, but it was just kind of insane or something. So yeah.
I can't imagine it being acoustic, but I can imagine myself being on a mosh pit with that song.
Hell yeah, totally. Definitely a mosh pit song for sure. Yeah. And I love those kind of things when you're dancing and then it like the song kind of stops and then you're like, hell yeah, and you go for it. That's the best feeling in a pit. So
Nice. Well, another one, Oliver, is My Head is Bleeding.
sick. Yeah, I mean that's like such a crazy song, and all those kind of, I think it's a pretty different song for A Place to Bury Strangers as well, with those
Yeah.
kind of parts. There's those weird rhythms that are kind of overlapping, which are kind of a little bit of a mind fuck in some kind of ways, and just kind of really bring apart those, like the scariness of that, of kind of like being disoriented and going along that plane, and then when the parts just like rip in, it just tears your face off, and kind of has sort of the feeling of when you're absolutely deathly scared, or so just beyond, and was encapsulated that in that song.
Tear your face off, gotta be the best idea for a song.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. Yeah, perfect for Halloween or something.
Yeah, totally. And talking about Halloween, I wanted to talk also about the video clip for I Disappear, which was directed by Keith Thomas, this director which has directed several horror films of the past few years, even a Stephen King adaptation. Can you tell me about the story behind this video clip?
Yeah, I mean, that's he had this idea for the video, and was like he wanted to shoot it in this warehouse and make this kind of sort of thing happen. And it just sounded like such a sick and cool idea. I mean, I'm just such a fan of his work and all this stuff, and we had a bunch of different horror directors even direct a lot of the videos from this album, and what an honor to have him do this cool video. And so I think that it's just so cool to see that whole story unfold with those people, where after who knows what happened, and you can tell that they're really trying to make this kind of thing happen, where the one girl's after the other girl, and and that's I mean, it's so cool. I think it's just awesome. Kind of shows those sort of the pain and the suffering of the last moments, after something insane has happened.
Very tense. Would you like to work with him again?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, all of these people. He was fantastic, super sweet, super nice to work with, and I mean, he's doing such cool, amazing work. So it's awesome.
Great. Well, Oliver, I want to take the chance. Now I want to move to some other themes because, yeah,
why not?
When will I ever had another chance to talk to you, right? So to me, it's very interesting, your other work, the other things that you do, especially with Death by Audio. And I want to know more about your work with, first of all, what originally inspired you to design guitar pedals?
I mean, I really just wanted to kind of figure out what other sounds there were there, and playing guitar and recording music. I just had this feeling that there was probably more out there than the stuff that you could kind of get your hands on. And I also even really liked a lot of really insane music, and so I think a lot of times those guitar effects pedals were geared towards like the classics. It was always like, oh, this was the pedal that like Pink Floyd used, or Jimi Hendrix or something. I mean, those artists are incredible, whatever, that's all cool. But, I was just like, I had seen people build weird machines and crazy things, and I was like, oh, I want to see, what could be done with these electronics, and if there was ways to modify these sounds to do further things that I wanted to. It's like sound is such an incredible thing. It's like something that you can't really see. And so, all these different sounds kind of move you and make these different ideas and feel different things. I thought that the more I kind of understood about these mysteries would be, the more I could kind of create some crazy soundscape. So yeah, I just learned as much as I possibly could and keep on trying to learn more.
Most of the music by A Place to Bury Strangers also plays a lot with the idea of the wall of sound, which was a technique made by Phil Spector, which also died last year. I don't know if you want to talk more about this, because I would love to know more about your point of view of what Phil Spector legacy left on the wall of sound.
Yeah, I mean, his recordings were so incredible. I mean, it was what an awesome sound he sort of made with all of that kind of stuff. It was just so incredible, really. And so I don't know, I'm such a fan. I've got the Phil Spector Christmas album. I've loved so many of the groups and stuff that he's recorded. I think he really captured a very particular time and he also kind of made this happen in a time when you couldn't use like the techniques of today. So he knew that he wanted that wall of sound to make it sound like everything in the room is vibrating. You're totally being overwhelmed by all of these instruments. And he had to create it by getting like an orchestra in a place and having multiple people singing and, build all of these different things around it. But, it's in the same kind of way. It's like you have an idea for a goal, and you know what it is that you want to kind of create. And so you have to figure out a way to create it. And I think that's even such an important thing, even when designing effects pedals. It's like, being a musician and having an idea that you want to create, and figure out a way to make it happen, you have to do that. So you have to go down that road. What's a better motivation than that? Than like you really want to see what this thing is going to sound like, or you really want to experiment with this thing and hear what it sounds like to hear 200 guitars playing at once, or you really want to hear what it sounds like for a drum in an elevator shaft, or whatever it is, these kind of things that sort of like excite you and drive you. And I think that kind of gives you purpose for all of this stuff. So it gives their like purpose to these designs. I'm not designing some effect pedal to make money, or something like that. Or I'm not designing something because it's a great marketing scheme or something. We lucked out and we kind of have these businesses and these things just based around these journeys that we want to go on, and these things that, places we want to explore, and things that we think are exciting. If my life had been different, it might have turned out different. And, I've just been lucky where, I kind of crossed that threshold. You got to like find friends who are willing to do stupid things with you and dive on in, and maybe you can make it work. And if you can, then I think it's good.
And I believe many bands on recent years, for example, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or the OCs, have taken more risk about how to experiment the guitar with all this distortion, with all these new techniques, with all that fuzz. What do you think about what the rock and roll underground scene is becoming from this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome. I'm glad that, like a lot of these kind of bands and these things sort of have these opportunities to kind of come out. And those are incredible bands who put on really wicked, awesome shows. And, I'm glad that if that kind of stuff is maybe more in the mainstream than some other things. But, I think that it's also, there's everything kind of runs that risk of sort of getting to be too sort of pop and stuff or whatever. But I think it's, as long as there's like, still an underground, I think that that's great, and that was like so important to me. And, so cool to see those shows, which are like off the chain and in some crazy places. And I know that like the OCs, they'll still play crazy shows in weird spots and stuff. And I know that John, really cares for that kind of stuff. And it's real important to him. Like, what are like the cooler venues and the cooler things that are going on? And he really pushes to make sure that they go and do that stuff. And, that's great. And I think that that's, kind of what it's all about is, once like King Gizzard and stuff, in some ways, some of those shows get to be like way too big, to where it's like, it's awesome, or something. But it's also like you start to, lose that little bit of what was awesome about those smaller shows too, and that stuff of where you can actually kind of be right up there with the band and be experiencing this stuff. And so I think there's a little bit of that balance, but I think there's always going to be like smaller bands who are playing those kinds of shows and, doing that kind of stuff. And if, if it's cool that music is changing to be more and more crazy, I think, but then you got to top it with something even crazier. So who knows what that'll be.
And it's curious, you mentioned about these smaller venues and these smaller shows, but that definitely feel more passionate between the audience and the bands. Because my last question was about the Dead by Audio warehouse that used to put shows on the early 2000s. And I wanted to see if you can share some memories from those days, and if at some point, maybe in the future, you would like to revive this concept.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many great shows. It was really incredible. It would just be, I don't know, just really fun and awesome. And there would be so many different surprises where, you would have booked some band that you didn't know if they were going to be any good or not, and they would just totally blow your mind. And then it was even just like so much awesome experience where you kind of get to see people do all these different things that, you know, you would have had no idea were a good idea, you know, and tried out there right in front of you. And it was like these bands that would hobble together this equipment to sort of make this sort of thing happen. And it was even a little bit about the scene and the things that were going on and the people who would just go to shows for no reason, you know, which kind of made this stuff really awesome. I think also, you know, just a place where kids could even go for all ages shows and congregate. I think that that's like so important. And there was definitely so many shows of like weird young acts or old acts of like old jazz musicians and crazy things where, you know, I would just be like, what the hell is happening here? And it was like so awesome. And yeah, I think it would just that kind of those sort of outlets and those sort of ways make it like really important, you know, and have it be like kind of even curated by people who are like actually actively searching for these things, and have it be where there's like low overhead and stuff, so that, you know, that's it's not all about money or anything like that. It's more about like the passion of what could be like some cool show, and can we set up a really cool show that's going to be here, and I love this or that band, and then doing right by that band by giving, you know, them all the money at the door or whatever you possibly can to kind of make that stuff where it's like I don't know, it's just sort of with such like a positive effort towards the good of the scene, and, you know, or even like just having a good time, and all, you know, outlets for people to do and for people to have a place to belong, and, you know, or not, or hide in the corner or whatever it was, but just, you know, and even having those bands, you know, giving people a chance and stuff like that. I think too, I think a lot of times, you know, there's not necessarily an outlet where someone could do something kind of crazy, or, you know, do some really weird performance show or something, and, you know, get an outlet to do that stuff. So it's cool when, you know, you hear word of mouth about someone who's some cool performer or something like that, and then they play some other crazy show with some other people, and, you know, you were just in the other room cooking dinner, and then you walk over and there's this craziest show, you know. So it's you know, I don't know, magical experiences all around, and was really a really important part of my life. And if you can, you know, host any shows at your houses or some warehouse you have or something, it's a good thing.
Totally. And I keep with what you just said about places for people to belong. It's a great idea, and it's a lovely concept, which I hope many people take in consideration on the future.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Well, Oliver, thank you very much for sharing these minutes with me. I want to ask you for one last thing. If you can send a greeting to all the audience that is listening here in Pólvora, and inviting them to the Mexican tour of A Place to Bury Strangers.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? This is Oliver from A Place to Bury Strangers, and come see us in Mexico.